You are now listening to Marie Messages Podcast, a podcast where we break down the realities of self care, coming with nothing but honesty and transparency. Now, your host, J. Marie. Hey, what's going on? It's your girl, J. Marie, and thank you so much for joining back for another episode of Marie Messages Podcast. I'm excited. We have a special guest today, Miss True Intentions herself. We have Vanesha Richardson on the line. How are you?
Hi, how you doing, sister? How are you?
I am well. I want to thank you so much for joining us today. So, for the listeners, I want to give Venetia the opportunity to introduce herself and let everyone know who you are, where you're from, and what you got going on.
So my name is Vanesha Richardson. I am a mental health worker. I work with youth, family, and children throughout the state of New Jersey, linking families and individuals to mental health services. I am also CEO founder of True Intentions Tea, where I sell holistic teas, herbal teas, and other merchandise such as tea bottles with crystals to assist in any healing and manifestations.
Great, great, great. Oh, that is so cute. Can you show that again? Your
Hey,
bottle?
this is a tea
That
bottle.
bottle
Right
is
now I'm
so
drinking. Yeah, this is a rose quartz, and it's rose gold at the bottom and at the top. But this tea is actually the Womb Be Still tea that I'm sipping on today. Um, because I have a little bit of fibroids, so I have my womb be still.
okay.
So yeah, so that's good. So hopefully we actually talk about that throughout in the conversation as well. You know, wound healing and things like that.
Cool, cool, good stuff. But first of all, I need to get me one of those bottles, but we'll talk about that later because it's so cute. I like it, and I'm a tea drinker, so
Ooh, yes.
I'm a huge tea drinker. So I definitely want to look into that and see what you got going on over there. Also into sewing to businesses because I am so big on sewing into my fellow sister, my fellow brothers' businesses because if we don't sew into each other businesses, like who else will? So I'm definitely gonna look into that.
Yes. Well, I see you got your mug too, so I'm gonna be filling that up. Don't worry. I love it. I love it. I love it. What you sipping on? What is in there?
Tea, tea, but it's honestly it's a hot toddy because I was
Okay.
really conflicted. I wanted to have a cocktail, and then the other part of me wanted tea, so I said, let's smash them together. Hot
Absolutely.
toddy. Not sick,
Got it. Got
but
it. I like that.
we had to smash them together real quick. A
I
little
like that.
indecisive today. All right, so today's episode I titled "What About Us?" What about
Oh,
us, millennial woes? I'm a millennial. You're a millennial as well, correct?
yes. Yes.
Okay, so you hear so much about millennials. I cannot, how privileged we are, and I don't understand how that is the case, but how privileged we are, how good we got it. I don't understand that either. So I really want to talk about the things we face as millennials compared to other generations.
Oh. So as we actually are talking about it, my heart is just pounding because this is where my passion kind of comes in. So you guys will be feeling a whole lot of energy. So I do apologize in advance. Do not apologize at the same time. But that is a there's a big misconception of what millennials go through. I think we are the change agent. We are change makers of society. We're in a really tight spot. We're between the generations of trauma. We are also affected by the previous generations and cleaning up their mess and their decisions and affected at the same time. So we're actually changing things while affected so that the generations that come from underneath us does not have to go through the same thing. That's a lot, right? That's a lot.
Yeah.
So we're in different systems and we are in different fields of study. So you have people in the medical field, you have people in the education field, and just different places, right? And we're trying to make changes, but we are bounded by the generation before us who do not understand our language. So there's a big disconnect in how we communicate
Yes.
with the previous generations, because to them we're coming off as entitled or demanding,
Yes, that's the word.
right?
Hmm.
And it's like, just because I know what I want does not make me entitled. Just because
Yes.
I know
Yes.
that that's not what I want does not make me, demanding, right? It just makes me know what I want and do not want, and I'm held responsible for your emotions and feelings because you did not know what you wanted,
Yes.
right? Or it's almost as if we have to learn as we go, but the previous generation, which is the baby boomers, right, the silent generation, you guys knew, you know, but don't want to teach the millennials. So we have to find out on our own, and when we do find out on our own and we find out a new way or a better way, we get chastised, right, for finding it out
Yes.
and then wanting to apply it, you know we get stuck in this. We don't want to work all our lives till we're 65. We don't. We want to retire. We want to enjoy our latter years, but we get, looked down upon when there's another method, or we want to take another avenue towards something. And because the previous generation didn't go that way or didn't have to work that hard, they get mad, and it's like, why are you mad? Like, you should be happy that we found another way, that we found a shorter way, or we found a way where it worked for us and our generation. And I think what happens is there's a disconnect, and it's a jealousy period that happens from one generation to another that has to be addressed. The previous generation should be happy for us. They should actually move us along and be proud that we're going to stand on their shoulders. But instead, they move aside. They don't want that. They don't want to share the space. But I think that passing the torch is important for the next generations to come.
You know what? You just spoke a word. So that was just a word because you said so. I was just about to be like, come on, you preaching today. All right. No, that was definitely a word because let's backtrack a little bit. When you talk about that entitlement, I know from my experience working as an executive assistant, coming into positions with people who's been there, I'm usually taking over for someone who's either retired or it's a brand new spanking position. And
Right.
then I'm placed in this position where there's someone who's using paper and they're looking at me thinking I'm not busy because you don't see paper on my desk because I'm so tech savvy. Everything is electronic. Everything is because that's just what I know how to do. I'm like, give me two screens. I'm gonna show you how it's done. And I face a lot of this all the time,
Yes.
a lot of conflict, a lot of when I come in to try to change things because most of the time I'm working with baby boomers
Yeah.
who are like, oh, wow. Or when you go on an interview, they see the jobs and they're like, wait a minute, you've only stayed here for 2 years. You only stayed here for three.
Yeah.
What happened? Why you
Yeah.
don't stay long? And I'm like, don't stay long. I'm like, because they had no opening for me to move up to. So now I got to go somewhere else, you
Exactly.
know? And that happens
Exactly.
all the time in the workplace, especially with millennials. We would jump ship. We're like, we're not staying loyal to this company so we can sit around and complain about what they're not doing for us. Okay, you don't want to do it? We're going to go to the next job and we'll get it from there and move forward.
That's the power and the beauty of being a millennial. But that's the change, right? Because when we are going through this process, then now when we're sitting in that chair, like where the baby boomers are sitting, we're going to be understanding, and we're not going to scrutinize or hold it over someone's head that they jumped around from one job to one job, opposed to you staying somewhere where you're unwanted, mistreated, and miserable for a
Mm-hmm.
long period of time, and which contributes to the health issues and contributes to the breakup and the marriage failing, right? And then the issues with your children. We are trying to break a lot of the generational curses and the unhealthy generational patterns, and we can't do that in an unhealthy work environment.
Absolutely. And even to go a step further, like not even in the workplace, like if we go into the families based off what you mentioned, and this is something that I get a lot of pushback with my family. So if anyone from my family is listening, oh well. But the truth of the matter is breaking that generational curse of that's your aunt, that's your uncle. Like you got to deal with certain things just because of the title of who they are, instead of in not setting those boundaries. And I feel like millennials, I mean, I know for me, I can speak for me that's a challenge. It was a challenge for some time because of the way I was raised, and I'm being raised by a baby boomer who is basically saying, this is your family member. Family always comes first, which I agree. However, that don't mean I have to tolerate any type of verbal abuse or treat it differently because this is a family member.
Right.
And I see that happens a lot. Like it happens. It's like, but then it's a lot of us, or we get to a point where it's like, all right, yeah, that's my cousin, but by blood, but I ain't gotta rock with every one of my cousins, because we all got a lot of
Right.
family and people all over the place. But just because we have the same last name or we have the same blood in our veins, don't necessarily mean that we gotta be like this. We gotta be cool. We gotta agree all the time. I have to
Right.
be in these settings. I don't want to go to everybody wedding. I don't rock with them while I'm going to their
Right.
wedding. Let that seat go to someone that actually rock with them.
Right.
That type of thing. And I feel like millennials, we kind of are not risk takers, but we're looked at as risk takers, rebels, really just stepping out the box.
As we should. As we should. In breaking the generational unhealthy patterns, it does take questioning traditions, right? Questioning the why, questioning even the who, you know? And but before we did that, we're also questioning ourselves, right? We're putting ourselves first. We're no longer, putting ourselves last to provide you comfort, to provide another person comfort, at what cost to me? At what cost? At what cost to my sanity? At what cost to my mental health? Am I going to put me second? And we're not putting that on the line anymore. And I think this is the beauty of our generation is that we're saying no. And
Yes.
no means no. Like we're
And
literally
meaning it.
shutting
Yes.
it down. And yes, there are moments where it's not, yeah, it happens, right? Tradition, outweighs the generation of the no or the yes, right? So that does happen. There is a compromise, but at the end of the day, we're literally putting power to the no, and the power of no is so powerful,
It is.
and it's so necessary in creating a boundary and breaking unhealthy habits. So when we say no, we're really saying no to the unhealthy relationships that played the community a long time. We're saying no to the unhealthy education systems that are, pouring into our young ones. We want to change that. We're saying no to the medical field who keeps, reinforcing the negative treatment, poor bedside manner, the issues of black women dying, our babies, and all of those things. We're saying no. We're like,
Yeah.
hell no, it's not happening. So respect our no. just like we respect your yes,
Mm-hmm.
respect our no, and that's where we're coming. And I think that's so powerful. And it throws people off when you say no. No, I'm not doing that. That's not where my values line up. That's not my worth line up. And I'm not doing anything that's less than that. So
Yeah.
anything less than that is being asked of me, it's an automatic no. That's it.
I always tell people all the time that no is a sentence. It's a sentence. You don't have to provide any explanation. Your reasonings for saying no is your reasonings for saying no. If you choose to give an explanation, that's on you. That's under your discretion, but you don't have to, and you need to be confident in that decision. Hey, you. Yeah, you listening to Marie Messages podcast. Don't forget to click the link and check out the merch store. We got nothing but the best merch out there. Get your hoodies, get your mugs, get your t-shirts, get your sweatshirts. Make sure you check us out. Now back to the show. So what I did want to ask you, because you are a licensed clinical social worker, and I'm so excited to have you on. And I know you mentioned when we spoke prior to the podcast about trauma focused therapy. Do like tell I want you to explain to the listeners what that really is and how it's truly important for us as millennials to. I'm an advocate for therapy. Okay, I have this talk at least once, twice a day, talking to someone about you need to get a therapist, a PCP, a dentist, and a therapist. I feel like you should just have them. Like that's just you just should have. And it doesn't mean you're crazy. It doesn't mean any of that, but we all have things we face on a daily basis that needs to be managed. And we all need help in one way, shape or form. We need that maintenance. And so I really want you to tell the listeners what is trauma therapy and the importance of it.
Ooh, child, where I begin? Because trauma therapy is is delicate and it's fragile, right? So I don't want people to think that it's an overnight process, and I don't want people to think that I have to be careful because a lot of people think that you can pray things away, um and you can do little affirmations and think that's enough. Yes, it works together and it aids in the process, but it's not trauma based therapy. So trauma therapy is basically going in um to systems, and you're going back to generation and you're addressing generational patterns. So what were some of the generational things that came up for you, your mom, your grandmother, and going back as far as possible, and looking at the patterns and looking at the thought processes and looking at where people live, what was the environmental factors and things like that that contribute to the generational traumas or patterns, however you want to classify it. And seeing, when we believe that, when you put a name to it, right, you can heal it. You know, if I know I have anxiety, then I know how to address myself, right? If I know how to prep myself, I know, I have depression, I know how to prep myself, I know my triggers and things like that. So when you put a name to it, name your devil, if you want to call it, right? If you put a name to it, then you're able to kind of uh, stay ahead of the game, so that when you have your daughters and sons, or you're raising your daughters and sons, that you're not passing down the same generational unhealthy patterns of behavior, yelling, cursing at our children, calling them names, not listening, ignoring the warning signs when there's sexual abuse. Like there's times where there's a sexual abuse case, and when you go back, mommy has been sexually abused, grandmama had been sexually, it just keep going, and it's multiple women in a family with the same trauma. And it's like, wait, why? What happened, and why did it go on for so long and no one caught it up until this young child, being a victim, a 10-year-old being a victim, and now we're bringing out the grown women who was sexually abused, and we're just now bringing it up 20, 30 years later.
Yeah.
If we had brought it up 20, 30 years later, this 10-year-old probably wouldn't be a victim today. We save lives when we actually bring out the trauma, when we talk about these traumas, and we save, generations so that they don't have to go through the same thing. This is what we're going through as millennials. We're going through traumas, and we also changing it at the same time, which is a delicate place. So yeah, I
I
do
have to
believe
agree with
everyone should
that.
go there.
Yeah, that's huge. That's huge. And when it comes to trauma, mental health, as a parent who has a child, I have an 11-year-old who she's had some trauma as well. And the things that are coming up now as she's getting a little bit more older, that has happened, that she has experienced, that she remembers, and things like that. I am it's as a mom, it's hard to hear, but at the same time, because I am such an advocate for therapy, I'm an advocate for mental health. I understand that it's a real thing, and I'm a Christian. I go to church every Sunday. I sing in the praise team, all of that, and I do believe in praying it away. But faith without works is dead, and that work part is the therapy. That is the true work part, because if we don't open our mouths, we won't know. And like you said, it could have happened in generations of past, but we don't know because we don't talk about it, especially in the family. We don't have these uncomfortable conversations until it's like too late now. It's like if we took the time to like you said, to actually get the help when we need the help. So I'm excited for my daughter because she knows what therapy is. She understands the value of it. She has a therapist. She knows what self-care is. She knows how to journal and write, and she does her affirmations.
At
And
11?
at 11, I started her at around 8 years old. I started her with journaling, affirmations. But prior to turning 8, I used to say affirmations over her.
Yeah.
And in the Bible, it talks about speaking life into people.
Right.
How there's power in your tongue and what you say. So it's extremely important to me as a mom to sow that into my children.
Yeah.
And tell them not just the bare minimum, that they're smart and they're beautiful, but like really dig deep and really have them feel comfortable to be open to tell me things and to tell their therapist things. Now, for my youngest, who's only 5, she's going on 26 in her mind. But eventually, she's getting to that point now too, that we're going to start that process as well, because I feel it's extremely important for therapy to be in place. Now, for me, I didn't start therapy to my 30s. So, it took me a long time, and it was uncovering things from my teen years that I'm like, okay, I'm understanding my why I make the decisions that I make, why I choose the friends I made, why I chose the relationships I was in. And it started to spiral in place. Girl, bye. I said this on the last podcast. I was taking lashes off every session coming in the car, putting it on the dash, but I felt good just to get it out.
Well, shout out to your therapist, man. Like, that is awesome work. That's hard work. And I definitely commend you for not just showing up for yourself, but for your children and putting them into, the system of therapy as well. I believe, like that's dope. Like, girl, them eyelashes ain't nothing compared to the healing process, child. That's good.
Yes, it is. It's a peace that surpasses all understanding. And I say that because, that is a scripture. You want peace that surpasses all understanding. And I feel like that if you do, you do the work, and it's ongoing. It's not going to happen overnight. Sometimes I wanted to curse my therapist out.
Well,
Okay.
I just, I feel, I'm an empath. So let me tell you, and this is a transparent moment. When you had said that, I felt the heart. I don't know if you felt it in yourself, but I felt your heart. Like, I don't know if it like came together or like, like did a little release or whatever, but I felt the tightness a little bit
Mm-hmm.
around it. So, it tells me that something's amending. So that's really, really good. It's working. So the therapist is doing a great job. So that's what's
Thank you. It took, and it also too, I like to tell the listeners all the time, like, I went through 4 different therapists before I found the therapist for me. It took time, but I tried. I gave each therapist adequate time, and it wasn't about like I had one therapist that agreed with everything I said. I'm like, okay.
You will have to shop around for your therapist now.
I'm like, this is not
It's like
working.
shopping for shoes. Yes, and there's nothing wrong with that. And the real true therapist will not take it personal, because it has to be a good fit. I know I tell my people that, I do therapy with, like, listen, you're a part of my tribe. And I tell them, like, like, listen, you represent me. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna need, like, we gonna have to get this work. And you just, when you're done with me, when you say you've been in therapy, they're gonna really see a difference. I'm like that mom, right? Where you like, when you go out in the streets, you represent me. Yeah, that's me in therapy.
Oh
Because I don't
goodness.
need you sitting up and you talk about, you telling people you're in therapy, you out here busting out windows and stuff. So I don't, so when this is what I do know. My clients thrive and there's outcomes. They buying houses, they, fixing marriages, and they have, like, so that represents me.
Mm-hmm.
And I pour into everybody that connects with me. I'm intentional, which is why I called it True Intentions, because everything I do is intentional, everything is real. I'm not gonna fake nothing for you. I ain't gonna do nothing. I will call it out, and we're gonna work it out. And they know that, so I don't, so they know what it is. If they, come across the video, they'll be like, yeah, that's a,
That's what's
and
up.
then
That's
if I don't
awesome.
see them for a couple of weeks or whatever, I send them my eye emoji, like, where you at? We
Mm-hmm.
ain't done.
Mm-hmm.
And then even the men that do come into therapy, my men, oh my God, they thrive. They make so, like, they just do a whole they're not the same people that walked in, and it's so beautiful to see them in their families and going, being, good black men. It's just I'm like, yo, that's what's up. Like, like, yeah, girl, you better get that man, because he was in therapy. Let's go. He good now.
Mm-hmm.
And
That,
it's
I
just
mean,
a
that's
beautiful
work.
thing.
You don't really
Yeah,
hear about a lot of men in therapy.
they
I,
thrive.
that's awesome. I love to hear that. I really do love to hear that. So, that is very nice to hear because I do not hear that often. I push it all the time. I'm like, you should go to therapy. Why? I ain't nothing wrong with me. I
Yeah.
didn't say ain't nothing wrong with you, but you should go to therapy. So to hear that and to hear black men at that is
Yes.
awesome. That is
Yeah.
awesome.
They are open to healing. As much as we think otherwise about them, they actually want, and when women support, if their significant other in that process, it makes it a lot easier.
I'm sure.
Um, and it makes the process move along. So what, it's just a beautiful thing, the outcome, they're better dads, they're better fathers, they're better significant others. They, calm down, especially if there's an anger management component to it. They know how to communicate effectively with their spouses, and it's just beautiful. They're not cheating no more, because that, a lot of them got, tendencies that are in line with that. And they were like, Miss Richardson, I'm good. I'm like, you better, because we I reinforce good behavior. We, that's what it is. Like, we're all about making sure the family unit is together. And when they come in here, that father piece, that man piece, that masculinity, it has to be right. For the rest of the family to be right. You had a
Yeah.
household, and we kind of reinforce that. So we don't take no shorts. Like, nah, homie. Nah,
I
homie.
know
You're gonna
that's
get it
right.
right. And you want when you go back to her, because she's a queen, that's my sister. When you go back to her, you're gonna be 10 times better than what you left her that morning, you know? And that's where we go. But that has to be reinforced, that has to be supported by her, and by the sister. And when that happens, we're good.
That's awesome. I'm so this that just really made my heart happy because I just love to hear those success stories and to know that there are black men out there that are going to utilize that service because it's important. It's extremely important. I do want to wind the conversation down and see what type of advice would you give my listeners, male and female, because we have some fellas that do listen as well, and for millennials and particularly millennials. What advice would you give them to ensure that they are practicing self-care?
Okay, so this is what I always say to everybody, especially millennials, right? Do a vision board every year, or every 6 months, at least every year. In this vision board, you need to incorporate self-care, traveling, or something within that, the nature of self-care that is affordable for you, because millennials are broke. I don't care what nobody says. We have no money. Stop acting like we got money. We don't. No, I don't care how much Ubering in this world we doing, how much Amazon shifts we're taking. We don't have money. Okay, so thank you. Shout out to Boomers for raising the living of America, but whatever. Anyway. Self-care does not have to be expensive. It could be literally reading a book. It can be, having a clean room, a clean living environment. It can be taking walks. It does not have to be this drawn out process where you have to take a trip. If you can afford it, do it by all means. It can literally be meditating. It could be journaling. It can be, artwork if you are creative. It could be doing your own hair, learning how to do your own hair, washing your own face, just facial hygiene and things like that. It does not have to be this big glamorous process that Instagram always like to make it out to be. It could be you and your spouse. Creating a mission statement, a family mission statement. It can be you organizing your goals, your financial goals, your family goals, your own self, like your business goals. It could be anything that is an investment with self. The investment in self is the key. You have to invest in yourself. No matter if it's time or money, it has to be an investment of self. Once you get the investment of self, you just conquered self-care.
That makes complete sense. So there you have it, listener, from a professional and a millennial
Investment of
and an
self.
African American woman. Okay, you just checked all my boxes. I just want you to know. Um, I just, gonna take that advice. I'm gonna take some of that advice. I actually just did a new vision board last weekend. I had got all these supplies together and I was like, you know what? I want to revamp my whole vision for this year. And I did exactly that. And it was fun. And I'm not a I'm creative when it comes to like music and putting a podcast together, something like that. But as far as like art and finding pieces to put together, I did the most basic vision board, but it's the most beautiful thing to me because it's everything that I want to manifest for my life. And I think it's extremely important too that we invest in doing one. And it doesn't have to be no.
It could you if you don't have magazines, you could write it. I don't whatever, however it has to come, it just has to come. And it will the self-care piece is incorporated in that, right? That's where you are again investing in yourself. You are identifying your goals, because we cannot self-care when we are disorganized. We cannot self-care when we are in chaos. We
Mm-hmm.
cannot self-care when we are in unhealthy, toxic relationships, friendships, family ships, whatever, and work ships, whatever. We cannot do that. No matter how much self-care we do, if you're coming home and you're getting popped upside your head, it negates the self-care.
Yeah,
If you come
yeah,
home and you're getting abused by your spouse, it negates the self-care.
yeah, yeah. You're right. You're right. All right. Well, Vanesha, I want to thank you so much for coming on. This was a great conversation. And I thank you yet again for agreeing to do this.
Thank you.
I want all my listeners to make sure you look in the description so you can check out Venesha's business, True Intentions, the tea, the water bottles, all the stuff she has going on. The link will be in the description. So make sure you check that out. Again, Vanesha, thank you, thank
Thank
you,
you.
thank you, thank you, girl. I really, really enjoyed this. All right, everyone. I will catch you guys next Sunday for another episode of Marie Messages Podcast. Bye.
Bye.